The electricity bill sitting on your kitchen table right now is not a cost of living, it is a ransom note. Every single month you pay it, not because there is no other way, but because you were never shown one. You were handed a system at birth, told it was the only system, and then charged for your dependence on it every 30 days for the rest of your life. While you were doing that, while you were scanning the fine print on a utility statement for a way to lower what you owe, a man with no address, no bank account, and no utility contract was keeping a steady light burning every single night, using nothing but a handful of dirt, 2 coins, and a principle that was formally documented 184 years ago. They didn't want you to know his name. They especially didn't want you to know what he knew. His name was Marcus. That is what the regulars along the stretch of 5th and Clement in San Francisco called him, just Marcus. Nobody knew his last name, and he didn't offer it. He was quiet the way people are quiet when they've decided that most of what gets said isn't worth the breath it costs. What people did notice, what you could not help but notice if you walked that block after 10 at night, was the light, a soft, steady, blue-white glow coming from under the concrete overhang where he slept. Not a phone screen, not a camping lantern, something different, smaller, steadier. A young city infrastructure engineer who passed that corner every morning eventually stopped one cold Tuesday in November and asked what it was. Marcus looked at him the way someone looks at you when they're deciding whether you deserve the answer. Then he reached under the edge of his sleeping bag and pulled out a wide, shallow plastic tray, the kind you slide under a potted plant to catch water. It was filled with dark, wet soil packed firmly around 2 objects, a post-1982 American penny, copper red on one side, dull and silver gray on the other where it had been sanded against the sidewalk until the zinc core showed through, and a strip of galvanized metal cut from a piece of hardware cloth he had found near a dumpster 3 blocks north. Short lengths of salvaged wire ran from each into a single small LED. The light was dim, but it was real, and it had been on every night for 11 days. Marcus looked at the engineer for a moment and said something the engineer would repeat for years afterward. "The ground remembers," he said quietly. "You just have to ask it right." Before we go any further, I want to ask you something directly. Have you ever been cut off, power shut down, lights gone out, and you're sitting in your own home realizing just how completely you depend on a system you had no part in building, no vote in designing, and no way to leave? Drop that in the comments below. Because what you are about to discover is going to change the way you see every patch of soil you have ever walked across. And it starts a great deal further back than Marcus. Here is what the modern electricity system looks like stripped of the marketing language. Fuel is extracted from the earth, often from land that was never the company's to begin with. It is transported by pipeline or tanker to a generation facility. At that facility, it is burned. The burning boils water. The steam rotates a turbine. The turbine drives a generator. The generator produces alternating current, which is stepped up through transformers, pushed across hundreds of miles of high-voltage transmission lines, stepped back down at a regional substation, run through distribution lines along your street, stepped down again through a transformer, bolted to one of those poles above the sidewalk, routed through a meter on the side of your house that records every watt, and finally delivered to your wall outlet, where, if you want to charge your phone, it gets converted again from AC to DC inside a small plastic brick that gets warm to the touch. That is the chain. Every transformation in that chain bleeds energy. By the time electricity generated at a power plant actually reaches a device in your home, roughly 60% of the original energy from that fuel has been wasted as heat somewhere along the way. You pay for the waste. You pay for the infrastructure. You pay for the transmission losses, the shareholders, the lobbyists, the rate filings, the regulatory proceedings, and the executive compensation packages. You pay for all of it every month without the option to opt out, because someone a very long time ago decided the grid would be centralized and that you would live permanently at the far end of it. Then they made sure that was the only story you ever heard. Here is the part that should make you genuinely angry. The principle Marcus was using, the exact same two-metal wet earth electrochemical reaction, was documented in a formal British patent in 1841, before the Civil War. Before Edison lit his first bulb, before the modern utility industry existed in any form at all, a Scottish clockmaker and inventor named Alexander Bain buried two metal plates in moist ground, connected them to each other through a wire, and produced enough electrical voltage to power a clock. The patent number was 9363. It was real, it worked. And within a few decades, that same basic Earth battery was being used all across the United States and Europe to supplement and replace chemical batteries along telegraph lines, powering long-distance communication infrastructure through nothing but the mineral-rich soil and two dissimilar metals. The system did not fail. It was not abandoned because it stopped working. It was replaced, and it was replaced not because something better served you, but because something more profitable served the people who owned the infrastructure. So let us get into the actual science, because this is where the real story lives, and once you understand the mechanism, you will see exactly how Marcus could keep that LED burning for 11 consecutive nights off a tray of dirt and a couple of coins. Let us start at the beginning. When you push two different metals into moist soil, you are building what chemists call a galvanic cell, the same fundamental device as the battery inside your television remote, the same chemistry as the battery in your car. The difference is that instead of a liquid chemical electrolyte sealed inside a casing manufactured in a factory, you are using the Earth itself. And the Earth, as it turns out, is a remarkably effective electrolyte when it holds moisture. Moist soil contains dissolved mineral salts, sulfates, nitrates, chlorides, all carrying charged ions that can facilitate the movement of electrons between two metal surfaces. Think of the soil as a highway. The dissolved ions are the road. The electrons are the vehicles. You just need the right on-ramp. The two metals matter enormously. You need what electrochemists call a galvanic couple, two metals that sit far apart on something called the galvanic series, which is a ranking of metals by their natural tendency to lose electrons to their environment. Zinc sits near the top of that list. Copper sits near the bottom. Put them both in the same moist soil, connected by a wire, and zinc immediately begins shedding electrons the way a river sheds water downhill. It cannot help it, because that is what zinc does when it is sitting next to something that wants electrons less urgently than it does. Those electrons travel through the external wire, your circuit, toward the copper. Meanwhile, hydrogen ions in the soil migrate to the copper surface and accept the arriving electrons. That constant, ordered movement of electrons through the external wire is electric current. That is what kept Marcus's light on. That is all it was. A single cell like this, one zinc surface, one copper surface, moist soil between them, produces somewhere between half a volt and a full volt. A single AA battery produces 1.5 volts for comparison, not a dramatic output. But here is where your understanding of Marcus's method snaps into focus. Post-1982 American pennies are 97.5% zinc with a thin copper plating on the outside. Sand one face of a penny on concrete for 30 to 60 seconds, and you strip away the copper plating entirely, exposing the dull, gray zinc core beneath. You now hold a bimetallic electrode, copper on one side, zinc on the other, that cost you 1 cent and can be found on any sidewalk in any American city. Marcus was not using anything exotic. He was not using anything he purchased. Everything came from soil and whatever the street had discarded. Now here is where it gets genuinely remarkable, and this is the layer of the story that most people never reach. Soil does not just conduct electricity through dissolved mineral salts. Living soil, soil with organic matter, with decomposing material, with the invisible microbial ecosystem that makes plants grow and keeps the Earth's chemistry cycling, produces electricity as a direct byproduct of biological metabolism. There is an entire class of microorganisms that scientists call exoelectrogens. These are bacteria that, As they break down organic compounds in the soil, release electrons not into the surrounding liquid, but directly onto conductive surfaces pressed against them. They are essentially wiring themselves to any metal they can find. The most extensively studied species is called Geobacter sulfuriducens. It exists in virtually every patch of natural soil on this earth. Bury a conductive anode in dark, organic-rich soil, and these organisms will colonize its surface within days. They will feed on the decaying matter around them and pump a steady stream of electrons into the circuit. The richer the soil, the darker, the more alive and complex its microbial community, the stronger and more consistent the output. Marcus was sleeping on some of the most microbe-dense urban soil in San Francisco. He had been camping in the same spot long enough for the bacterial community in that tray to fully establish. He did not plan it that way. He had just been patient, and the earth had answered, "If you need institutional verification for what I am describing, it exists." In January 2024, researchers at Northwestern University published peer-reviewed findings documenting a soil-powered microbial fuel cell that generated 68 times more power than was required to operate its onboard sensors. The device outlasted comparable technologies by over 120%. It functioned reliably across a wide range of soil moisture conditions, from 41% saturation all the way to fully submerged. It successfully powered not just the sensors, but a wireless antenna capable of transmitting data. Every component was purchasable at a standard hardware store, and then the research team made a decision that the energy industry would prefer they hadn't. They published all the designs as open source, no patent, no licensing fee, no corporation in the middle. The information is publicly available, free of charge, right now. The soil is free, the bacteria are already there, the electrons are already moving, and this is precisely why you have never heard this discussed seriously outside a university laboratory. If you are finding this video valuable, if something about this is landing in a way that changes how you are thinking, hit like now, because we have more to cover, and subscribe, because this is exactly the kind of thing this channel was built to dig up. So, why did Alexander Bain's Earth battery, a real, working technology deployed across real infrastructure, disappear so completely from public knowledge that a homeless man using it in plain sight for 11 nights on a San Francisco sidewalk reads like a magic trick? 3 reasons. They follow a pattern that should be very familiar to you by now. The first reason is speed. A galvanic earth battery, or even a microbial soil fuel cell, produces power in microwatts to low milliwatts. A coal-fired generator produces it in megawatts. When industrial cities began electrifying in the 1880s and 1890s, when factories needed to run through the night and streetcars needed to move and buildings needed to light every floor simultaneously, the earth battery simply could not keep pace with the rate of demand. The principle worked. The output was real. The scale was wrong for the industrial moment. That is not the same as the technology failing. The second reason is cost, but only at industrial scale. To power even a modest city through buried electrodes would require enormous surface areas of buried metal, extensive maintenance schedules as zinc electrodes corrode and degrade, and a distributed system that was far harder to centralize, meter, and bill than a single power plant and a wire leading to your home. Someone calculated that the grid was more profitable, not more effective. Those are not the same calculation. The third reason is that in the same decade Bain's earth battery was being deployed along telegraph lines, cheap coal became available in quantities that made centralized steam generation irresistible. Not to you, but to the investors who owned the infrastructure. The earth battery was not replaced because it failed you. It was replaced because coal and the machines it powered made someone else very wealthy, very fast. And once the infrastructure investment was made, once the grid was built and the meters were installed, the entire system had every financial reason to remain exactly as it was. The hidden cost arrived later: grid fragility, price volatility, rolling blackouts, and the slow, dawning awareness that what the system burns is not renewable. The Earth battery burns nothing. The bacteria do not run out. The soil does not deplete. The electrons have been flowing, quietly and without invoice, for hundreds of millions of years. So, what do you actually do with this? Let us be honest with each other about the scale. An Earth battery, as Marcus built it, is not going to run your refrigerator or your air conditioning. It will power low-draw electronics indefinitely. It will serve as a resilient, off-grid emergency source. It will keep sensors, radios, LED lighting, digital clocks, and low-power wireless devices running without a single watt from the utility company. Here are 3 ways you can start, ordered from easiest to most committed. The first option requires nothing you need to buy. Take 3 post-1982 American pennies, sand one face of each against a concrete sidewalk or coarse sandpaper until the copper is completely gone and the dull zinc surface is fully exposed. Gather 3 strips of galvanized metal, old nails, hardware cloth scraps, galvanized fence wire, anything zinc-coated. Press them into a shallow tray of dense, dark, moist garden soil. The richer in organic matter, the better. Alternating, copper face of penny, then galvanized strip, then copper face of penny, 2 inches apart between each pair. Connect them in series with short wire lengths, positive terminal of one cell to negative of the next. Touch the ends to a multimeter. You will see voltage. Connect them to a red or infrared LED. It will glow. This is not a trick. This is physics that has been sitting in your front yard your entire life. The second option is a scaled microbial fuel cell using a larger container. A plastic storage bin works well. Fill the lower 6 inches with rich, dark, biologically active soil. Bury a section of graphite cloth or a graphite rod as your anode in the lower oxygen-poor layer. Run a wire up to a copper or graphite cathode sitting in a thin layer of water at the surface where it contacts air. Connect through a small capacitor to your load, a low-power LED, a soil moisture sensor, a basic IoT device. Give the system a week for the bacterial community to establish itself on the anode's surface. The output will build as the microbial colony grows and stabilizes. It will self-sustain for as long as the soil contains organic matter to feed the bacteria. The third option, the minimum, takes 3 minutes. Search for the Northwestern University Soil Microbial Fuel Cell, open source schematics published in January 2024 as part of their proceedings of the ACM research. Download the documentation, read it. You now hold a complete, peer-reviewed, hardware store buildable blueprint for generating electricity from the ground beneath your feet, produced by an accredited research institution, freely published, requiring no subscription and no purchase from any company that profits from your dependency. Marcus was not a curiosity. He was not a man who stumbled onto something by accident while living outside the system. He was, in the most precise sense of the word, an engineer, working without a degree, without a laboratory, without a paycheck, who solved the most fundamental problem a human being faces by reaching for the most fundamental resource the earth provides. He remembered what the grid spent 2 centuries teaching the rest of us to forget. The knowledge was never lost. It was buried, not in soil, but in the careful, deliberate architecture of a system that profits from your not knowing it exists. If this video changed how you see the ground under your feet, subscribe. This channel is dedicated to investigating exactly this category of knowledge, the methods, materials, systems, and discoveries that were working long before someone figured out how to put a meter on them. Tell us in the comments what you want us to investigate next. We are just getting started.